So that being said, I'll ask Chief Mentor to come up and give his update, or if you want to do me first and do Chief, how do y'all want to do it? Me first? All right, so I'll answer any questions you may have.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Good morning, how are you? Good.
So you mentioned that a second person has died from Friday's shooting. Can you give an update on their age and then an update on other victims?
Let the Chief do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another question, when it comes to gun violence, you mentioned that the answer is better policing. What plans do you have in place to work towards that?
I can't hear you.
What plans do you have in place for better policing?
Well, again, I think that we're recognizing here that people come to life as they are. We have a behavioral policing unit. I talked with Dr. Toomey about this. I think that gun violence is a health issue. I think that we have young men in our community that suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. When people go to war and they come home from war, they're given counseling because they recognize they experience some trauma. And we have young people that have experienced trauma and they grow up to be older people with trauma. And the trauma not addressed is acted out in a variety of ways. Some people handle it differently than others. Not to excuse the criminal act, but we recognize that there are people out there that need help. I was taught how to peaceably resolve my conflicts. And then we have a proliferation of guns. In Georgia, we cannot have guns everywhere and then be mad when guns show up everywhere. If Chief and Mentor and I are having a fight and we both put down our guns, then we just have a fist fight, of which Chief Mentor is going to lose. But for us, it's really a matter of removing guns out of that equation, teaching young people, and not so young people, of how to better deal with conflict. And police can't do that necessarily, which is why we have to engage parents and fathers and mothers, loved ones, spouses, girlfriends, boyfriends, to be able to say, talk them down. People in the community say, you know what, let that go, let it go, let it go. And put some time between the incident in which I'm grieved or vexed and the time I want to put that out there. Chief Mentor will tell you, there several times we're at the hospital and I'm talking to a young person that is suffering from a gunshot wound that says, I don't want to tell you who shot me. What sense does that make? And as the young person said, well, I'll see you later, Mayor. I said, no, I'll probably see you. You probably won't see me. We have to really change the paradigm, and we need partners in this. That's what's going to make Savannah different. Because people say, more police, more police, more police. No, the fact of the matter is, if I wanted to shoot you right now, I might get caught, but there's nothing going to stop me from shooting you right now. And so I think we have to recognize that. And so what we need is policing that addresses, and again, we're at the forefront of that. We're putting money into Savannah Impact for those that have criminal records. If you want to do better, those that are coming from home, from jails and prisons across our country, and when you're coming home, we have to have opportunities for you to do better. And I just think that people that have jobs and have opportunities, those who can see tomorrow are working towards tomorrow. They don't see their lives in terms of today. So it's a all hands-on approach. I've heard from every person in the world has given me every solution for it, and I believe that it's probably a combination of all those things. But on the other end of it, I've had people say, let the police do their job, take their handcuffs off the police. I'm like, what are you talking about? Articulable suspicion is still the same. Probable cause is still the same. The mechanics of arrest are still the same. Use of force continuum is still the same. So the police can do their jobs. But we're saying as a community that we don't even want it to get to a point where the police have to intervene. And so to use Friday's incident, had someone intervened then, because obviously there was beef and people knew about it, if somebody said something, maybe we could have intervened and separated these parties so that this did not happen. And now people are talking, but we shouldn't have to wait until something happens for people to talk. So.
And as far as tourists coming to Savannah, what would you say to them who are maybe scared or worried to come to the city?
Savannah is still safe. I mean, you show me a major city in our country that does not have some issue regarding crime, and I'll show you that you're on Mars. Our city is safe. Again, I've articulated the situations in which people are involved in crime. Our violent crime is not random. It's not random crime. It's people who know each other. And so, as I've told a group of young people, if I'm not messing with anybody's drugs, nobody's woman, and I'm not messing with nobody's money, I won't have a problem. Carry on and spend a lot of money in Savannah. We're glad you're here.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Good morning.
I spoke with a few city council members yesterday who said they believe we could use more cameras across the city, different resources to try and help catch these people who are committing this type of violence. What are your thoughts about that? Do you think it's something that we could benefit from?
Well, in the midst of a defund the police movement, the city council actually added $4 million to the police budget for this year. It's $4 million, Chief, right? $4 million for technology. Now, keep in mind now, cameras don't prevent crime. It just captures the act of crime. So for us, we have instituted more cameras. We're continuously doing that. Again, we have to get involved in the person-to-person psychology of it all. And so we'll continue to do that. We'll do whatever our citizens are willing to pay for. And so for us, I think it exemplifies the need that we have a well-funded police department that has above the national average in clearing crimes. We have to get to the point where crimes don't happen in the first place. And so hence the work that we're doing, poverty reduction, affordable housing, reentry. I think that type of work becomes very, very, very important. Because again, it gets us to the point where these things don't happen. And I will continue to ask the state and our state leaders that we need common sense gun legislation in our communities. Right now, police cannot do various things in the course of their duties just to ensure that a person that legally has a gun. If I have a gun, if I have a driver's license, I can show proof I can drive the car. So why not the same for a weapon? And so again, we can't be mad that guns are everywhere, and as a community, we're going to have to say enough is enough. They're happening all over the place, and the summer is coming, and I'm fearing that times might get harder.
Do you think our gun laws here in Georgia are the stem of this problem?
No. I think it's a symptom of the problem. Again, I'm a Second Amendment guy. I'm a former law enforcement officer, and I carry. But to that end, we recognize that there are guns. People who are responsible gun owners are not the ones committing these crimes. And so there is a market out there for guns that are stolen or illegally acquired. We know here in Savannah that people, for some reason, still leave their car doors open, and they still think that if I put the gun underneath my seat or in the glove compartment or in the console, that nobody will see it. And everybody knows that's where you look. And so people are breaking into houses. They're not looking for TVs, they're looking for guns. So if we can prevent the crimes of opportunities on one end, and then make sure that we are sending a very clear message that people who have guns, who should not have guns, face the full force of the law. And so that means stiff sentences for those that are involved in violent crime. My expectation is that our criminal justice system, our district attorney, and courts will take this as seriously as we take it.
And Alderman Curtis Burgee having that open forum on Thursday night, do you think this is kind of the first step in addressing this violent trend here in Savannah?
Well, I think we have to all talk. And we have to talk because people will say, and it's the strangest thing, that never happens here. I just thought it happened on another side of town. The fact is, crime, like the weather, it moves. It does not know a geographical boundary. So for people talking about crime, for people being engaged in crime, unfortunately, an incident like this had to happen, but this is what we do here at City Hall every single day. Every single day. And so if we have more eyes looking at it, more mouths speaking it, more courageous conversations about how we are all a part of eradicating it, that I think is for the better.
Moving to the city manager search now, what is your goal to have somebody hired from these 3 finalists?
I'm hoping within the next 60 days to have someone in place. Again, all that depends on the negotiation process.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nancy with the Savannah Morning News.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I had a question about the shooting that had happened on Saturday. You said that if someone had simply spoken up on Tuesday, this could have been avoided, but many of the residents there say that it's not so simple. They're either afraid of retaliation or they haven't seen changes in the past before. So they feel neglect from the city or law enforcement. So what do you say to that? And how do you plan on really understanding what's going on in the neighborhood and creating more in-depth solutions that go to the source?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. First of all, behavior challenge remains unchanged. So the fact of the matter was not speaking got us into this situation. You know, we recognize, and I've told people they can call me directly. They don't have to call the police, they can call me. And I've gotten a bunch of calls, and people have called and reached out to me in various ways, giving me information. They can continue to do that. You know, the fact of the matter is that we have to be actively involved in protecting our community. This could have easily been 8 fatalities, easily. But for the grace of God, it was not. And so it's important for us to engage, and in any way people want to engage. I was in the community yesterday. We've been through there throughout the weekend, and we've actually been there for the last several weeks. So, you know, we accept the fact that we have to communicate in ways people feel comfortable communicating, but the role is you have to communicate. You can't just say, well, I just don't want to say anything. Because again, you know, the fact was, you know, perhaps if we were able to get that person off to the streets on Tuesday, Friday would not have happened. And so I'm not blaming, but I'm challenging people to say, if we're going to do better, we have to do better.
I mean, prior to the incident, did you go into the neighborhood before to establish that, you know, environment where they could come to you?
Absolutely, several times. The chief and I, a couple of aldermen, we walked that area. This is an area that's known to us. We're very familiar with Avery Street. And so we were there in the evening, we were there at night. People like, oh, that's the mayor. Yeah, it's the mayor. What's up? Let's talk. So again, I'm not hard to find. So, you know, trust and rapport is reciprocal. And we make ourselves available, and I'll continue to make myself available to anybody who wants to talk. I mean, understand the thought of retaliation, the threat of retaliation, but I'm also concerned about the threat of doing nothing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, man.
Hey, sir, how are you?
Pretty good. I wanted to talk about something that also Chief Benjamin asked about earlier, so keep that in mind when you're answering. Did you happen to see the meme that was the subject of the second investigation?
I did. I saw it very recently.
Gotcha. It's pretty rough. So my question for you is, police are trained now, there's sensitivity training in place. We've talked about it for years and years. Is this an issue that training can fix, or is this a deeper rooted departmental culture issue?
I think it's a couple of things. Obviously, it's sensitive. I recognize that as a police officer, that police officers have really weird senses of humor. But the fact of the matter was, this wasn't funny. There was nothing funny about it. And given the circumstances that were just facing our department, the fact was that was sent to a group of officers, not to the entire watch of officers. And so my question is, what other communications occurred between this group? I think more importantly to me is that you had supervisors that were a part of this chain that could have easily said, stop. This is inappropriate. stop it immediately, and it did not happen. So as we're talking about a police department that is more sensitive, and then we had a family, a mother who had lost her son, a son who lost his father, a sister who lost her brother, officers that were involved at that time in an incident in which someone died while in their custody. It just was not sensitive at all. And so we will continue to train, but we have to also send a very clear message that this behavior is unacceptable in our department. So while I don't think that the officers meant to be mean, the fact was that it was mean.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm not sure if this is going to come out as a question or a comment, but my grandmother, my 70-year-old grandmother, lives in the neighborhood where the shooting happened. About half of the week I spend out there with my grandmother. She's pretty self-sufficient, but that's my grandmother, of course. And my question is, what do we say to the people that live out there that are not involved in, of course, any crime? Besides, Savannah is still safe. So I was standing outside on the front porch talking on the phone when that shooting happened. And it could have easily been me killed or grazed at that time. And just to add to that, that neighborhood is not a neighborhood that I believe people come or should come to stay. It's a transitional place. So how do we make sure that people are not sitting there for decades?
Yeah, I think the most difficult part for me was if people are combatants in criminal activity and they want to kill each other, then have at it. The fact was there were innocent people who had nothing to do with it, that were around and were collateral damage in all of this. We are having some very courageous conversations with the Housing Authority of Savannah. We have advocated, and I've advocated, that they need some sort of security force for their areas to help supplement what we're doing. As someone who grew up in public housing in New York, or around public housing, the Housing Authority had security, both police security and citizen-led security. We have to get individuals off of our streets, and that's the bottom line. My heart goes out to your grandmother, who should not have to endure that kind of stuff, which is why we're working every day. And if we have to revoke the bond of every person that's involved in criminal activity, again, we have to get them off of the streets. We have to get them off of the streets, because people should have the right and the opportunity to sit on their porch and enjoy the day. And as for me, I'm in that area. I've been various areas across our city, and I could be on a porch with somebody. It could have been me. It could have been anybody. And so that is why we have to remove those people who have just determined not to live peaceably. And so I'm committed to doing that. Gary Graham, my apologies.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Hey, Alex.
So, in the state of Georgia, there are 71,000 named gangs. Obviously,
71,000?
named gangs.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, an issue in the state.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like the city of Savannah has tiptoed around that issue in the past?
No, my former press briefings, I've said we have gangs, but it's different than gangs as we would know them from the movies. Our gangs, again, 3 or more people involved in criminal activity, they're much more fluid. Today you're a part of the WSAV gang, tomorrow you join the WTOC gang. I mean, it's much more fluid, so it's really a lot harder to really keep up with. But again, the chief will talk a little bit more about their efforts as it relates to that. I think part of it deals with identification. after we identify, we have to be able to have those conversations. Do you choose to continue this life, which is part of what the End Gun Violence Program is about? Do you choose to continue this activity? If you do, there is an expected end for you. If you don't, then let's find ways to help you be successful. But there are people in our community that are terrorized by these folks. We know who they are. We know where they live. Their parents know who they are and know that these young people are living in their homes, which is why it's so important for us at a very granular level. Young people will do what their parents ask them to do more than they'll do what the police or their mayor asks them to do. And so that's why we're enlisting that help of those moms, those dads, to get our young people out of that life.
And to your knowledge, how many identified gangs are there in the city? Do you know any of them?
I know several of them. I know several of the names. I know several of the members. I'll let the chief go into exact numbers because I'm not sure.
And as far as incentives to get the community to talk, I know Crime Stoppers obviously offers, a reward. Is that something the city would consider or plans to do in order to get people to come forward?
Absolutely, and stay tuned.
That's all.
Yeah, if we have whatever we got to do, again, we want them off the streets. And so I don't care who it is. If you're a threat to one person, you're a threat to every person in the city. And so therefore, we'll deal with you in that way.
My last question, you kind of touched on this. The fact that people haven't come forward and aren't talking to you and aren't talking to the police, what do you think that says about police-community relations?
I don't think it has a lot to say about police-community relations in Savannah. I think it has to deal with culture. You used to, when we were growing up, you had parents telling people don't tattletale. And we grow up and we say don't snitch. And then you have kids saying snitches get stitches and end up in ditches. I mean, I think it's that welfare of which people say that I don't have anything to do with that, so therefore I don't have anything to say about that. Well, we've shown conclusively that it does have something to do with you. And so I'm going to tell because I don't want this person to come after me. And so, we have seen what happens when people don't talk. And so now people are talking because they recognize just how dangerous this was. And so for us, it's continued community engagement. I think our police have a good relationship with our community. And we're going to continue to improve on that. And I think that the tips and things that we've received in the last couple of days is proof positive that we have a good relationship. It has to be nurtured. It has to be fed and nourished, and we'll continue to be able to do that. But the fact is that we're all in this together. Public safety is a public's responsibility.
My last question is sort of more personal question for you. When this mass shooting took place, from my understanding, you were in New York, correct?
I was what?
In New York, correct?
I was not in the city.
You were not in the city.
Yes.
Okay. And to not be here when that took place, I mean, what was that like for you to not be able to have your boots on the ground and lead at that time?
Well, it was a couple of things. I was in a different time zone, so I was literally up the entire night. And so the chief was in constant communication with me throughout the night as we figured out what was going on. And so I was fully involved and engaged. As a matter of fact, did a couple of meetings via phone and then talking with aldermen as well. So it didn't change anything. I would have wanted to be here as I usually am. On the other end of it, I had business I needed to attend to for myself.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Sean?
Morning, sir.
Good morning.
Just one quick question for me. Later this afternoon, I know you're going to be joining several mayors from other cities around the nation that experienced gun violence over the weekend.
Yes.
What conversation are you going to be bringing to the table to push the agenda forward for these laws that y'all would really like to see at the federal level?
We need federal gun laws that make sense. Right now, they don't. And with every state doing its own thing, again, you see major cities across the country, which Savannah is now, having these same challenges. And so we need some some assistance from our federal government to help us to make laws that make sense in our communities and make it easier for our police departments to be able to engage, and make it easier for legal folks to keep their guns, but make it much harder for those who are involved in violent incidents, those that are involved in domestic incidents, those who have history of mental health issues from having a gun. We need that help on a federal standpoint, and I'm glad to join with mayors from across the country in that national conversation today.
Thanks.
Thank you. Chief? We're sorry, y'all. We'll be with you in a moment.
Good morning, folks. Let me start with giving you an update on the actual investigation. Unfortunately, I'm starting with some sad news. As the mayor stated, we had another victim of the shooting who succumbed to his injuries. It's going to be a 29-year-old male. Bianca will have a press release out for you later on this morning with more details involving that person. So that puts us at 2 deceased and 6 injured as a result of this shooting. All other victims received non-life-threatening injuries or are listed in stable condition as a result of their injuries. We had talked Saturday at the press conference about a possible red sedan we were looking for. On Saturday night, over in the Central Precinct area, we located some individuals in a red sedan. We attempted to stop that vehicle. That vehicle attempted to flee from the officers. The officers were able to eventually get that vehicle stopped. They were able to detain or take one person into custody. From that vehicle, the other person fled into a residence over the area. The officers were able to surround that residence and order that person out of the residence. Here's what I can tell you. At this time, detectives are still investigating, trying to determine whether or not those 2 individuals who were arrested on Saturday night are connected to the Avery Street incident. We don't have any connection at this time, but we did locate some individuals in a red Honda. Give you an update on one of the situations that occurred on Sunday at the hospital. We apparently are not the only ones trying to find out who's involved in the shooting. We actually had the brother of one of the victims who had to be escorted out of Memorial Hospital because he was there trying to interview some of the shooting victims to see if they would provide him with information on who they thought or who they think may be involved in these shootings. So with everything going on, we're looking at establishing a reward fund for information leading to the identification and arrest of suspects involved in the shooting. We're going to start this fund with an amount of $10,000. We're hoping this will generate some additional leads for this case, and some additional information regarding this actual reward fund will be provided to you later on today. Right now, our focus is on what I'm referring to as the 3 W's. The first one stands for who. Of course, we are actively working on trying to identify who the suspect or suspects are and arresting and removing those individuals from our community. The second W stands for what. And we're looking to see if we can determine what are the factors that led to this incident, where we had at least 3 apartments, 6 vehicles damaged by gunfire, 60 shell casings, and at least 8 people transported to the hospital, including an 8-month-old infant. Now, I had a couple people ask me about the condition of the 18-month-old infant. That infant received a graze wound to the ankle. So fortunately for that. And of course, 2 of the individuals involved in this incident tragically have lost their lives. And then the last W stands for why. We want to know why we're continuing to see people making poor, tragic decisions using firearms in our community. We are really thankful for the assistance we have been and continue to receive from our local, state, and federal partners who have stepped up to assist us with this investigation. But we're also very encouraged by the level of community support that we're receiving right now. Everything from, I'm sure you've heard about Alderman Pertee, to community of faith members who are stepping up. Tourism Leadership Council has contacted me. Two of our state representatives reached out to me, Carl Gilliard and Derek Mallow, have reached out to me, and we're looking for and continue to get more input and assistance from community members. As we stated, we realize that there are some people out there who are hesitant about providing information to us, but they may provide that information to some of our community members. A few of our community members are very interested in going out to the community, holding some type of event and opening or establishing the lines of communication there to assist us with addressing and resolving this particular situation. So that's the update that I have right now for you folks. I'll answer any questions that I may be able to answer at this time.
Good morning, Chief.
Good morning.
First things first, the mayor mentioned, with gun violence, that the solution is not necessarily more officers, but better policing. Do you share that same belief when it comes to curbing gun violence in Savannah?
Well, absolutely. One of the things that we've been talking about is we need not just a law enforcement approach. We need a holistic, community-based approach to address this. This is not just a law enforcement issue. This is a community issue, and we need the community to work together to assist us with addressing these issues that are going on out in the community. We're doing our part. I mean, we're out there, we're actively engaging with individuals, we're actively involved in enforcement activities, but it's going to take more than that to address these types of serious issues.
With your meeting with the Harvey family yesterday, can you kind of just give us some insight on, what was said on your end and kind of what the conversation was with that family yesterday?
Well, yes, what I can tell you is this is the second time that the mayor and I met with the Harvey family. It's been extremely heartbreaking to see the impact this particular situation has had on the Harvey family. I can tell you they're good people. We've met with them a couple of times, and this is a situation that I hate to see them have to endure and try and live through. I hope and pray that they find some type of comfort knowing that the Savannah Police Department did what we had to do to hold members of our organization accountable. I don't think any of these officers had any malicious intent in what they did, but they made some poor decisions and didn't follow department policy and procedure. Of course, poor decisions have consequences, and in this particular situation had severe consequences. I can tell you I personally watched part of a video involving the interaction between the detective and Mr. Harvey, and then some additional videos, and I can tell you it was one of the hardest things for me to watch when I watched that video. It bothers me even more that we had members of the department that did not follow department policy and procedure and could have made better decisions that I believe, if those two things were done, could have possibly prevented Mr. Harvey from losing his life.
Now, I learned yesterday that these officers were terminated because they violated department policy. Is the department looking at changing any policy regarding this incident?
No, the policies are great. The policies are solid. The policies that were in place to address and prevent something like this from happening. The issue is not the policy. The issue is failure to follow the policy.
Last question for you. The attorneys of the Harvey family yesterday mentioned that since this has all been brought up, there's been complaints that have come through them on unrelated issues that may have been similar with other police officers, and they've been forwarded to you. Are there any other investigations unrelated to the death of Mr. Harvey that you're now looking into because of this?
No, I read that statement. I'm not sure that it said that those complaints have already been forwarded to us. But if there is information out there regarding anything that has to do with the conduct or responsibilities of members of the department, we want to know about it. And we'll make sure that we conduct a thorough and detailed investigation as we did in this case.
Thank you.
morning, Chief.
Good morning.
How unsettling is it for you that these victims who were shot Friday night will not talk to police, will not tell you who did it to get this person off the street to prevent them from doing something like this again?
Well, I mean, it's very concerning. I mean, when you look at what happened on Friday night, and you actually pair that up with what happened Tuesday night, a couple of days before, where we realized the same address was targeted on Tuesday night. Nobody would talk to us on Tuesday, nobody would talk to us on Wednesday, and then 2 days later we had a mass shooting at that location. We continue to encourage members of our department and let them know that even if they don't want to come forward to us, there are several avenues, communication avenues, that they can use to get information to us. So the fact that nobody saw the need to bring that information forward is disappointing. That's about the best word I can use. It's disappointing.
And how helpful is it, things like cameras, ShotSpotter, when you are trying to find these suspects, having those resources, how helpful is it for you and your department in investigations like this one?
Well, of course it's helpful. I mean, the technology is always helpful. It's been very useful in a lot of investigations that we've been involved in. And some of the investigations that we've been involved in, we probably would not have been able to proceed in those investigations had it not been for some of the technology that we use. So it's very helpful.
Do you think it's something that we need more of in Savannah?
Well, we need to look at that. We continue to have those discussions about expanding technology in the city, especially in certain parts of the city where we kind of lack in the area of technology improvements. So it's absolutely something that we need to look at and continue to have that discussion.
Last thing from me, having open community discussions like the forum that's going to take place on Thursday, how important is that for our community, from your point of view, to be able to try and stop this violent trend that has been going on?
Well, I think it's very important. It's very important for us to continue to stay connected with members of our community, to continue to keep the lines of communication open with members of our community, but more importantly, continue to build that great relationship and partnership with the members of our community. So anything that we can do to promote those factors, I think is great for us and it's great for the city as a whole.
Thank you, Chief.
Hi, good morning, Chief.
Good morning, Nancy.
Yeah, I have a couple questions about both cases, the Saturday shooting and also the Lamar case.
Actually, the shooting was on Friday.
On Friday, sorry.
Yes. Okay.
So my first question has a lot to do with what I had asked Mayor Johnson earlier, and you said that the solution is a holistic community-based approach. But can you explain what that looks like, especially for a community that may not have that trust in law enforcement?
Well, when I'm talking about a holistic community-based approach, I'm talking about things in addition to what law enforcement can do. Addressing issues of poverty, blight, education, employment, but also looking at good, strong mentoring programs in our community, re-entry programs in our community, getting involved in our youth and our adults' lives in our community. So that's what I mean when I'm talking about a holistic community-based approach.
Okay. And moving on to the Harvey case, you said earlier that you don't think the officers had any malicious intent, to make poor decisions, but as a result of those poor decisions, someone had died. How do you plan on, ensuring that doesn't happen again? You said the policies in place work, but are there other ways you're thinking of changing things, like training or recruiting officers to ensure that those policies are followed?
Well, there are a couple of things that have already been done. We've already made sure that we have had a conversation with members of the department and reinforced the existing policy and procedure and reinforced our expectations of following the policies and procedures that are in place. But we also had a conversation, I've had a conversation with members of the department at all levels, from the chief all the way down to the corporal sergeant's position, about duties and responsibilities of supervisors in supervisory duties and responsibilities, and ensuring that individuals of the department are not only aware of department policies and procedures, but also are following department policies and procedures.
And are you considering pursuing criminal charges against any of the officers?
That's not for me to consider. That is between the Georgia Bureau of Investigation and the District Attorney's Office.
Okay.
Our focus was on the internal investigation. The other part, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation is looking into.
So when can we expect to get, more details of what happened with the Harvey case and also in terms of the meeting?
Well, we're done with the internal investigation involving the in-custody death and the meme. Everything else will have to be discussed with the GBI and the district attorney's office.
Okay, gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for you.
Hey, well,
I wanted to talk about that internal investigation, both the one with the original Harvey case and the meme. I know GBI covers a lot of that initial investigation, but I was wondering, what is the department's role? And I don't know how much of that you can talk about, it's under investigation and everything, but can you kind of just talk about the process that the professional standards unit goes through in order to investigate something like this?
well, the professional standards unit conducted an internal investigation looking at policies, procedures, and administrative standards. That's what we looked at. The GBI is looking at the actual cause and circumstances involving Mr. Harvey's death. So that's the difference between the two. Did department members follow established department policies and procedures? And if not, we investigated why those department policies, procedures, and administrative standards were not followed.
Yeah, so in this case, would that be, in effect, looking at the group message or looking at communication between officers, taking cell phones and looking at that? Like, what was the process there?
Well, the process there was looking at the information that was presented to us regarding the alleged conduct by members of the department. Basically, the chat meme that was sent out to a certain group was one patrol team of department members.
And so just interviewing them, talking about what happened, is that what? I'm sorry, I'm really trying to get people to view the process.
Yeah, basically it was identifying the members who were possibly involved in that matter, interviewing those members, and then assessing whether or not the information we received rose to the level where we believe that it actually showed there was a violation of department policy procedures.
In this case, yeah. So,
correct.
I guess, do you know for certain that this is not widespread in the department? Do you know that this type of, I don't want to be condemning, but just this type of behavior is not something that happens within the rest of the state police department?
Well, let me break the two situations out. Let me start with the in-custody death. I can tell you I've been in law enforcement over 35 years. I've never seen a situation where we've had an in-custody, where I've been experienced an in-custody death with any agency where somebody's been left unmonitored in an interview room. I can tell you, talking to, and there are a couple of Savannah Police Department veterans standing right over there, to their knowledge, this has never happened before in the Savannah Police Department where we've had an in-custody death in an interview room. Going to the other side about the meme that was sent out, that was very inappropriate. And it is something that's unexcusable. And I can tell you that I had several department members come to me and tell me how embarrassed they were that something like that was sent out by anyone who's a member of the Savannah Police Department. That tells me we don't have a cultural issue inside the department. We had an issue with individuals inside the department who made another very poor decision.
That's my next question. How is the department responded to kind of what's happened? What's the temperature like up there right now?
The temperature on that is that it should have never happened. It was totally inappropriate, and it embarrassed the members of the department.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chief.
Good morning.
So I kind of want to pose the same question that I posed to Mayor Van Johnson, and want to hear that from you. Do you believe that Savannah has a gang issue, and do you believe that it's been tiptoed around in the past?
I'm not sure if it's been tiptoed around. I mean, we're looking, obviously, there is a gang issue in the city or a gang involvement issue in the city. I mean, when you're picking up the newspaper and you're seeing things like indictments that are coming down from gang members, that tells you that there is a concern in the community regarding gang level activity. So I'm not sure that that's something that, you know, that the department and or the city has not taken serious, but it is something that we do need to continue to address.
And I know you're investigating the connection between, last Tuesday's shooting and the mass shooting on Friday. Is there any sense that it could have possibly been some kind of get back, some kind of retaliation? I know there's been talk in the street about that.
Well, as I stated Saturday during my press conference, the preliminary information we have right now is that Saturday's shooting and Tuesday's incident may involve a conflict between two groups.
And from, I believe your press conference, you said there were 60 bullet casings that were found at the scene.
At least 60 shell casings.
And do you believe there was more than one person that committed this mass shooting? Do you think there were more than one gun involved? What can you tell us about that?
We're still working through that part of the investigation. I know there were a lot of shell casings out there, and I'm pretty sure 60 shell casings did not come from just one weapon.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Palmer.
Just want to touch really briefly on the danger of a situation like that, where so many indiscriminate shots are being fired out the window of a car or someone on the street, whatever the case may be. You really drive home the point of, the mayor said that there could easily be any fatalities on Friday night. How we could end up with more fatalities in the future if people continue to act this way.
Well, you're absolutely right, and that's the reason why this is a very high priority for us in the Savannah Police Department. Identifying who the suspect or the suspects are, and arresting those individuals and removing those individuals from our community. When you have that much disregard for the lives of others, that you just indiscriminately start firing rounds into a crowd of other individuals, and 8 individuals end up receiving gunshot wounds, and 2 of those individuals are now deceased. That's a pretty high priority for us.
You say between two groups still, and I know we've spoken in some length about gang violence in the city. Are we saying this was gang violence?
I think it's still too early to say exactly whether or not it was gang violence without having all the information right now. Like I said, it may involve a conflict between two groups. Whether or not either one of those groups involved any type of established gang, we're still working on that information.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Quick follow-up question for you, Chief Sergeant. When you talk about this reward fund that you guys are establishing, obviously a lot of people are hesitant to talk. Is there a way for someone to come forward in regards to this reward fund anonymously?
We're going to get that information out to you later on today, but that's one of the things that we're going to be looking at to see exactly how we're going to structure that. I mean, we still have Crime Stoppers in place where individuals can report information anonymously to Crime Stoppers, but we still need to work out the details of how this new reward fund is going to work.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much. May God continue to bless the city of Savannah, and I'm